Hey, Bojo, Ogamaanakwit, Dishnakas. We're here tonight to provide the virtual community meeting for December 16th, 2020. We want to provide the community with an update on our financial situation, which will be explained in great detail. But before we get started, Vern is going to open up with a prayer, and then Melissa will come in with some updated information. We'll have an update from myself regarding how we got to this financial situation and how we're going to get out of it. So it's good news. Saugeen band, Saugeen First Nation has good credit. We've maybe overextended our purse a little on the new builds, but that's simply alleviated by taking out a mortgage over a longer period of time. So with that, I will turn it over to Vern to provide us with a opening prayer. Miigwech.
Miigwech. My name is Vernon Root, and I was given a name, Kite Moshkus, up in Wickwamacong about 65 years ago. And I haven't used it that much because we haven't used the language so much here in this community. But that's my name that was given to me, Kite Moshkus. And because of my dotem and my family connection, I have a bear as my dotem. And again, these are cultural lessons that we have a long ways to go to understand. But I want to start off with a prayer, and then once we have the prayer, I'd like to just say a few things on my own, just to start off our evening meeting and information session for you. So first of all, join me in a prayer this evening for our activity. Shemnato Gwechmagoana, Kay Binat Moyang Mumpi, Hage Gibbs Nuktomen, Hage Dos Nuktomen, Patina Kay Ganamachat, Hage Nonchkago Mishwebesit. Double Quendamen Panagain Inwit Mumpi, Patina Kay Yakazit. Shemnato Gwechmagoana, not much nangum pigan in Wimsko Gaboyang, Wimsko and among. Well, when again knock at the wind when we object to young. Henny went Mumpi, Mauja, Hagibit Tamagoman Manda, Mishnabo Kiwi object to on Mpi Betayang. Well, when again went, we could just toman Mpi, well, we die. Not much nangumini, how about Tinat K, Nonchka go Mishwebok. Well, when again, Nunga Gobson dog amen, how when again, when the Kendaman can go, how we mogong. But Tinat K, Kendas when up the Kabadi and the Kendamong. How gay Gemado, we got Twendum, can go Kegi, how Emmy's young. Can I go away Mumpi, Emmy not Mumpish Kunganing? Not the more, Ishnabe. Not the more we machi get Mumpi Ishnabe. Not the more we muds it. He gave a McGueto young Nanguyo, we've been not more young. We got Stishkov Mickit, Shamato, how gay, and Nondo young, how I get young. We got Shamado. Miigwech. Okay, thank you. Some of the things that I would like to say is it's a historical moment for me right here. The building that we are in, we are going to vacate this building very soon. Most likely next month, we will start having our council meetings in the new build. And we won't have this council table here anymore, and there'll be something else here. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to try and take the table out for now because some of the difficulties we've had, such as the church that had burnt down, very unfortunate. And so we need a place for those who are going to utilize church services, and I think this is the appropriate place that we can offer them for the time being. It's one of those emergency situations. And heaven knows we've gone through a lot of those emergency situations in the past. When I think about all the different meetings that took place here back in the 70s when I first started, all the meetings that took place within this room, and all the issues that families have had, and all the difficulties and problems that our community had endured for so long. When we started talking about leasing, where we could get extra money in the 70s. And then we start getting into different laws coming into the 80s. I especially remember 1984 when my chief, James Mason, died. And at the time, it was a bit of a disaster for us because he had died and he had left us. But then we had to move on. And so I remember that time and all the little bits of turmoil that took place. And then when we get into the 90s, all the difficulties that we've also entered into, and all the hardships that this community has come across. And we're still coming across those hardships, and especially right now. I haven't, and I guess I now really, the first time in my life, excuse me, imagine what happened to our people when smallpox first came around, and when the flu in the early 1900s took over our people, and a lot of our people died. Well, this COVID virus that's going around, we have been so lucky to sidestep that virus. Everybody around us is having that virus, and we have been so lucky. I want to thank you to the people of Saugeen, our community of Saugeen, for all the work that you've done to prevent us from being infected with this COVID virus. So, another chapter, another time in life has come and went by. And now you've got all kinds of prevention methods in place. And I hope that by next summer, everything will come back to reasonably being normal. And we can go about doing the business at hand. And we have a lot of things on the go. We have this nuclear file. We've still got to deal with this nuclear issue. We have to come up with some solutions. So we're going to continue discussing this for a while yet. There are no immediate solutions, but I would like to see the community being involved with that. We have this land claim hopefully that'll be resolved very soon, because that will also impact our future. And so when I talk about the past and when I think about all our leadership and all our past problems, we are entering into another era of the future where we're going to continue to have problems. And we will continue to have those problems that we have to try and solve together. We need also to work on ourselves as a people. We need to get rid of our traumas, our griefs, our issues that we have, so that we can be a good, prosperous community, good, prosperous people, and enjoy this land that our ancestors had set aside for us. Think about all those things. So those are just a few thoughts. There are many, many more, of course. And tonight we have a couple of council members that are going to share some of those concerns. And we have our GIMA that's going to also say a few things. And I just want to say from my own heart for you to enjoy your Christmas that you're going to have, however it's going to look like because of this COVID virus. Miigwech, and may you enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you in January next year. Aha, miyo miigwech kibzen doi keni bangi ha mikidian. Aha miigwech.
Hello and good evening, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, I am newly elected Councillor Melissa Snowden, and I'd like to start off by saying thank you for joining us this evening for our second virtual community meeting of this term. It has been a priority of this term's Chief and Council to ensure proper communication to the community is provided in a timely manner. Through this, we have identified the need for a full-time communications officer to begin to develop and implement a communications plan. This job posting will be posted this coming Friday, and we encourage membership to apply. A quick update on the last community meeting. Although we are still working to complete the questions and get them posted through the website, I want to assure you that we have taken action to the comments and questions that were received and have been working diligently on the priorities identified. So let's move on to our first agenda item, which is the 5-year strategic plan. I have currently taken the lead on the development of the 5-year strategic plan and have been working alongside Tara White from First Nations Financial Management Board. She is here with us virtually tonight, so Tara. Tara, if you could unmute.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Tara White, Capacity Development Manager with the First Nations Financial Management Board. Nice to see everybody virtually.
So we have prepared a presentation for you about the work that has been done to date. So let's dive in. Is that good? So the agenda for this presentation, we're going to go through what is strategic planning, our strategic planning process, and review the draft priorities. So, number one, what is strategic planning? Strategic planning is an important act of self-determination It's a plan for the future that is based on the needs of our nation. It should reaffirm the mission and vision of our community and prioritize strategies based on our values and vision. It allows for better accountability and transparency to membership. A strategic plan is not meant to be totally prescriptive. It should be directive and a guide in which to follow. Why is strategic planning important? It's inspiring. Having a strategic plan in place that is communicated and used as a basis for all other planning within the nation helps to show everyone where they fit and what their role is in contributing their efforts towards the priorities identified. The nation's priorities are clearly identified and communicated so everyone knows what our vision is and what we are all working together to create. It's empowering. It allows us to identify what priorities are important to us as a nation and make a conscious effort to focus our resources, time, money, and people towards achieving the goals we have chosen for ourselves instead of simply reacting to events as they come to us. Community engagement into the planning process helps us to identify what matters to us as a community and create our plan to achieve the vision for our nation that we have created ourselves. It builds cooperation. The strategic plan outlines the priorities that we have identified, and when used as a planning tool, it provides a guide to all of our programs, departments, employees to see their contributions and efforts fit into our overall goals. When everyone is working towards the same goals and vision, people and programs can work towards more effectively and efficiently, which can result in cost savings, more cooperation between departments. It is future focused. Our strategic plan will provide a guide for decision making. Council and leaders can ask ourselves if a potential action decision is in line with our established goals, visions, and values. Will a decision we make today bring us closer to achieving our identified goals, or will it take us off into a different direction and potentially use up resources that we need to use to focus on our established priorities? We all know that some days can be challenging. Having a clear and inspiring vision that we are working towards can help us maintain our focus and provide a constant reminder of the great things we are working towards and all of the benefits that we are providing for our members. Strategic planning benefits the whole nation. Strategic planning provides an opportunity to make improvements in planning and accountability activities. It helps make better strategies through a structured approach. It helps align individual efforts with the organization and improves communication. It allows for better informed decisions, and better decisions are made when there is an effective use of resources. A greater understanding, commitment, and cooperative approach towards problems and opportunities. What is in a strategic plan? A strategic plan is the context for all the nation's activities and decisions. What decisions or activities will move us towards the vision, away from the vision, or distract us from the vision? Council authorizes the strategic plan and the administration implements it. Council is responsible to receive and deliver on a mandate from the community, and the administration is responsible for achieving the goals of council. Strategic planning is a formal planning process that allows us to be proactive in our goals rather than reacting to events as they come up. It's a dynamic and continuous process. Where do we want to be? Where do we want our community to be? This is our vision and our mission for our nation, and what are the values we want to live by? Where are we now? Our nation's profile, history, statistics, organizational structure, current programs and services, etc. The current state analysis is a review of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. How do we get to where we want to go? What priorities have we identified, and what are the activities that need to take place in order to work towards achieving the priorities identified? What is the timeline for the work to be done over the 5 years of the plan? Throughout the 5 years of the strategic plan, there will be an annual reporting back to membership on the activities identified for each year, as well as provide a clear chance to review the plan and make sure it still makes sense if there are any adjustments needed for the upcoming year. So we are currently going through this process and identifying these things. So next section, I will allow Tara to walk us through our strategic planning process to date.
Thank you, Melissa. So for the strategic planning process that we have been going through, so we've just started to get back into continuing on with our strategic planning activities. So as part of this, met with council to talk about what council's priorities are as far as the strategic planning process. So there's two main priorities that council has. The first one is really making sure that there is community input into the strategic plan. So as part of the community input, there have been some previous community engagement that has already been done. So I'll review what's already been done, and then I'll review what the plan is for future community engagement. So as far as previous community engagement, it started about February 2019. So we had I had delivered some presentations. One was to council just on strategic planning, kind of an expansion of what Melissa just went over. So what is strategic planning? What is the purpose of it? What are the benefits of it? And then later in that month, there was another workshop that was attended by approximately 15 staff, as well as some council members. And in that workshop, we got into doing some visioning activities, worked on creating some draft visions and mission statements. And then from the draft statements that were developed, there was discussion amongst the participants on selecting a couple of the drafts as potential ones to move forward with. And I will go over those after, because there are two that are in the surveys that are going out to the community. We also reviewed the values. We looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We went through an activity where all of the participants created a wish list of anything they wanted for the community. And then we grouped those into common themes. And then in March, we continued again with another workshop that was attended by, again, about 15 staff and some council members. And in that workshop, we talked about the goals and strategies that came from the wish list and the grouping of those common themes from the prior workshops, and started to really brainstorm some activities that you could do in order to achieve the goals and the strategies, as well as a preliminary discussion on the draft timelines for meeting those goals. Next slide, please. So in June, there was a community meeting. So that was attended by about 22 to 25 members. Again, we had another visioning activity. So really taking a look at where the participants in that meeting saw your community in the next 30, 40, 50 years. And then from that visioning activity, we went into a gap analysis. So where are you now versus where did you want to be through that visioning activity, where you really see your nation 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And then from that, we had another activity where there was selection of priorities and activities. So just to continue to build that priorities list. In July, there was a presentation to council and managers on the strategic plan priorities that had been developed from the 3 prior workshops. So just reviewing the priorities and the activities that had been developed with the staff and the community sessions. In October 2019, we had drafted the initial strategic planning survey that again was based on the draft priorities developed. And the intent was to get this survey out to the community to get as much feedback as possible from community members. So in February 2019, those activities were put on hold. And I think at that time there had been about 16 surveys that were completed, but there was just no way to access them. So, and then with COVID, everything was put on hold. So anybody who did previously fill in the survey, if you could please fill in the survey again now. It's pretty much the same survey. There's just been a few updates to it. But if you can, please fill it in again. It'd be greatly appreciated. Next slide, please. So to continue on with the community engagement now, there has been, council's developed a timeline of activities to really get as much community feedback as possible. And really, the more feedback, the better. The priorities that are going to be developed in the strategic plan are going to be the priorities that are set for the 5 years of the strategic plan. So it's really important to get as much community feedback as possible into that. So there's currently surveys available online through SurveyMonkey. And those responses to those surveys are going to be collected until January 31, 2021. There's the virtual community meeting tonight. There's also going to be some dates where Melissa and Sheena are going to be set up at the admin office from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. So the dates are January 8th, January 15th, January 22nd, and January 29th. And they're going to be available there with hard copies of the surveys. So anybody who doesn't want to fill it in online can come in and speak with them and either fill it out themselves in person or have kind of like a chatting session with Melissa or Sheena, and then they can fill it out for you, or they can just help you fill it out as you go along. And then so the plan is to be able to have a draft of the strategic plan ready for the first week of March. And then it would be presented to membership at one evening during that first week. Next slide, please. So the second main priority from council's priorities in just dealing with this whole strategic planning process is to really balance the community's priorities with Saugeen's available resources. So financial resources, human resources. So to do this, after all of the surveys have been completed by members, we're going to be looking at what the priorities are on there, and then meeting again with council and the admin staff to review what the community priorities are, look at budget availability, look at the timeline for the next 1 to 5 years, and really put into the plan what the priorities are going to be built in for the next 5 years based on what a realistic expectation is that can be completed based on financial resources you have available, the staff that you have working for you, or any staff that you plan to hire, things like that. Next slide, please. Sorry. So for this next part of the presentation, I'm just going to review the draft priorities that have been developed and that are included in that survey, as well as the draft vision and mission statements and the values. So as I'm going through this, if you can make any notes to yourself, if there are any areas where you think something is missing or you don't agree with what's there, make a note to yourself, and then please make sure that you either fill in the survey online or you go in to see Melissa or Sheena on one of those dates so that you can really have your input into those. And within the survey, you can make any comments about anything you think is missing, any priorities you don't agree with, any comments you have on the overall priorities that are going to be presented here today. Next slide, please. So for the vision statement, this is included in the survey as well. So these are just 2 potential vision statements. And again, these were based on the workshops where we did some visioning activities with the staff and council. So on the survey, there's going to be these 2 options for the vision statement. So if you like one of them, please check it off on the survey. And if you don't like any of them, then just leave it blank. And there is an area there where you can put comments if you have any suggestions for a vision statement that more accurately reflects the vision of where Saugeen wants to be in the future. So the first option is Saugeen is a First Nation community driven through self-government to provide for the good of its people and others, to promote good health, body and mind, and endeavor to take care of every community member by assisting them to take care of each other, providing education as the means to provide opportunities, staying connected to the land and nature, and living proud of our way of life and successes. And then the second option draft that was developed is Saugeen is a vibrant and healthy nation, united in its vision to bring prosperity for all its people. And then for the mission statement, the 2 options for the mission statement that were developed are Saugeen is working together and engaging the community of Saugeen to support the enhancing of culture, community relationship, programming, and opportunities by moving forward together in positive harmony and creating opportunities for growth and development for a safe and healthy community. And the second option is our elders, council, and administrative leadership will work together to improve the long-term health, happiness, and prosperity of our community by balancing long-term and short-term decisions, risks, rewards, and socioeconomic goals, separating economic and social program development while balancing the efforts in both areas, developing strategic plans which transcend council terms and tracking our progress using key performance indicators, building long-term economic prosperity by integrating our traditional knowledge and skills, increasing youth employment, and enhancing the value of our lands and infrastructure, leveraging the community's access to capital, and investing in sustainable long-term socioeconomic development programs. Next slide, please. So the next slide is the values. And again, these values are included in that survey. So as you're going through the survey, if there's any that you don't agree with, you can make a comment there. If any that you do agree with, you can just check off the boxes beside it. So the values that have been identified as the draft values are following the 7 grandfather teachings. So wisdom, truth, respect, honesty, bravery, love, humility. Community, so we work together for the highest good of all. Pride, perseverance, and resilience. We overcome our challenges. Healthy, so we are walking the good life. And cultural awareness. We value our language, knowledge, and the teachings of traditional First Nation spirituality. Next slide, please. So as we go through these goals and priorities, they're not in any specific order. They're just overall, I think there was 7 overall goals that have been identified as the draft goals. So again, as we go through, please make any notes of any thoughts or ideas that you have as we go through so that you can really get that information into the surveys. So under health and wellness, the goal is that all Saugeen members are healthy and active and have access to holistic healing and wellness services, inclusive of Western approaches that empower them to achieve their personal wellness goals. Next slide, please. So as part of this, the activities that were identified are to complete an environmental scan of existing health programs and services within Saugeen and the surrounding area, conduct a needs assessment and survey of Saugeen members, leadership, program staff, and health committee to identify health needs, develop a plan to create or enhance programs and services based on the needs assessment to support an integrated delivery of traditional holistic healing and the wellness programs and services, inclusive of Western approaches, including the plan to enhance capacity and resources, hire more staff, enhance facilities and building, including space to support program and service delivery, acquire equipment and materials, and create and support partnerships, collaborative working relationships, and networking among internal and external departments. Next slide. Facilitate planning, policy, and development of programs and services, to develop a health model, develop a health strategic plan, maximize access to external funding, support new technologies, approaches, research and evaluation, education and development for ongoing best practice and delivery, support education and development, training, mentoring to enhance knowledge transfer and skills development for services, and then to do an ongoing review of programs and services. Next slide. So the second priority area is education. So the goal that was established is Saugeen First Nations education system is culturally relevant, community-based, encourages strong graduation rates, post-secondary enrollment, and a skilled labor force, and develops role models within the community to encourage and inspire our youth. Next slide. So in order to achieve this goal, the activities identified are: 1, conduct a review of all education department policies and procedures; 2, create and update the policies and procedures as they are identified based on that review; strengthen the relationships with schools; enhance programs and services offered in schools by having more counselors; language and culture, so more native language teachers, and other areas to be identified based on the review; to enhance educational awareness to inform students of options, so things such as school fairs, programs, trades, and then create a list of knowledge keepers to be shared within culture camps, schools, employment and training, etc. Next slide. Conduct a community survey to identify areas of interests and needs assessment. So if there's any upgrading requirements, etc., specifically regarding the skilled trades. Identify skilled trades programs that meet community identified needs. Identify additional sources of funding to support students in the skilled trades. For example, looking for bursaries or making bursaries available. Identify training programs for entrepreneurs, and begin the initial steps to work towards getting a school on reserve. So it was identified that a long-term goal would be to having a school on reserve. So during the first 5 years of this strategic plan, it would be just doing the prep work. So doing a feasibility study, having some community consultation, having discussions with other schools, and identify a potential location, which would involve having a land survey, environmental assessment, and things like that. Next slide. So the third area is jurisdiction, land, and community safety. So the goal that was, the draft goal that was developed is develop a plan based on community input in all areas where we want to move away from the Indian Act. Next slide. So the activities to support this goal are: one, looking at the traditional governance system. So recognition of a clan system, development of a knowledge keepers policy. The second activity is development of a land use plan that includes a cultural assessment of land. So a cultural map that identifies areas of cultural significance, such as any medicines where they grow, burial sites, revitalization of ancestral spaces. And then 3, potential implementation of a land management act based on the results of a referendum. So that would involve community consultation, development of a law, acquisition of additional land, and identifying sources of funding. Next slide. The next activity is policing. So looking at establishing your own police force. So review existing policies, bylaws, and codes to identify which ones would need to be revised or any new ones that are needed. Again, community consultation and a needs assessment, and then develop the plan to implement. So what is the jurisdiction, hiring of the officers, looking for funding, things like that. And then another activity is establishing your own court system. So researching any available funding, researching other court systems within First Nation communities, things like that. Reviewing the current situation. So transportation, the court support, research space, developing diversion programs, and looking at restorative justice training. Next slide. So the next area is infrastructure and housing. The draft goal here is the development of a plan and a timeline for infrastructure development based on community needs that is not impacted by a change in leadership. Next slide. So the activities are: 1, community consultation. So determine future infrastructure development needs, cross-community collaboration, and determine the priorities. Second is development of a procedure for all projects, including funding, environmental, and cultural considerations in order to implement all of the actions. And 3, housing. So develop a housing strategic plan and then begin working on implementing that housing strategic plan. Next slide. The next area is language and culture. So the draft goal is having pride and empowerment through knowledge of culture. So identity, history, language, and spirituality. Next slide. The activities that were identified for this goal are to implement cultural safety and cultural sensitivity for all staff and outside organizations that work with members. So add this to the employee orientation and training. Existing staff reviews, new staff orientation. 2 is cultural inclusion in all community developments and projects. So advisement and guidance with knowledge keepers and elders. 3 is having a review and include language and culture in all program mandates and scopes of work, including your committees. And 4 is establishing a working group, potentially volunteers, to help identify priorities, time frame, budgets and grants, and community consultation for ratification, and include this work within a community plan. Next slide. review the existing cultural plan from 2010 and develop an updated cultural plan, implement actions to work towards full immersion in the community. For example, introducing language in the managers' meetings and in any other areas where you can bring it into the daily work life. Assess feasibility for the construction of a cultural school. When it comes to environment, so introduce more practices of looking after Mother Earth. So recycling, blue bins, green bin composts, reduction of garbage, and increase the education around this. And then banning some products, such as the single-use products. So learn from the old ways when holding community feasts and programs, etc. Next slide. So another goal is under the leadership. So for council and managers. So Saugeen First Nation has a strong, united leadership who are committed, qualified, and have knowledge of our history. There's open communication between staff and community. Leaders are respectable who Minnow Bimwadzimwin, so they live the good life. Next slide, please. So the activities identified to meet this goal are to develop and implement a council orientation program that includes Saugeen's history, a review of all band programs and services, a review of conduct expectations, and a review of the leadership code once it's developed, and any other areas identified to go into this program. Start having biannual meetings between council and program managers, having all committees holding a monthly committee meeting or more if they're implementing a strategic plan, have a quarterly community meeting with council that is recorded and posted on the members only website. Council will to provide monthly updates and implementation of an election code that includes things like qualifications, for example, at CPIC. Next slide, please. The next is development of a governance law, and this law would include duties of council and ensuring that these duties are met. The next is all council and managing staff are to know and to follow all the policies. So that would involve policy training, a review of responsibilities. Number 9 is the implementation of the strategic plan by all. 10 is orientation for new staff by the supervisor. So the development of a management guide booklet. 11 is acknowledgement of staff who excel and then repercussions for those who don't. And 12, the development of a terms of reference for all committees. And next slide, I think that's the last one. Yeah, so that's just an overview of all the draft. And again, everything is just draft priorities and activities that have been developed. So through the collection of responses in the surveys and with people speaking directly with Melissa and Sheena, we're going to take all of that feedback and then meet with council and the leadership, the admin staff to review all of those priorities and build that into the draft strategic plan that will go to council or go to community for review. Early March is our time frame. Okay, back to you, Melissa.
Good. So I'd like to thank Tara for that presentation and walking us through what the strategic plan is going to be. I also want to note that we do have some technical difficulties for the comment section. So the link will take you to YouTube, so you can live stream on YouTube, but you'll have to come back to the CTRE website to add your questions or comments into the comment section. So you just kind of have to go back and forth, and we apologize. So we are very excited to be relaunching the community engagement aspect of the 5-year strategic plan. It is crucial that we have as much community input as possible. This allows for leadership and programs to have a roadmap with timelines to follow through what the community needs and wants. By implementing the strategic plan, along with the financial administration law and up-to-date Saugeen First Nation policies, leadership and community programs will have a clear direction on what steps are needed and give clear direction on where you, the community, steers us towards. We encourage you to provide your input during this virtual meeting on the comment section in terms of priorities, as we will be using the questions and comments when compiling the feedback from the community. And as Tara has mentioned, Melissa and I will also be here in the council chambers every Friday in January from 9:30 to 4 to assist with the hard copy of the surveys, but also answer any questions that you may have as we go along and questions or comments that come up as you look through the survey. The link to the online survey is listed below, and it is posted on the Saugeen First Nation website and the Saugeen social media pages. So asserting community engagement empowers community members to be in the driver's seat and give heed in the direction to the betterment of the community as a whole. By improving our community engagement, we are improving the process. So with that, we are going to take a 15-minute break, and then we will come back with Chief Onaquit.
Hello and welcome back. So we have been able to rectify some of the technical difficulties. You can now comment through the YouTube site. On the side there is a chat option there for you to provide comments as well. So as the chair of the Finance Committee, I've taken the initiative to schedule and host a series of workshops to review our policies that we have in place to date, so that Chief and Council can understand our roles within those policies and ensure that we are fulfilling those roles. And through this, I have learned a lot. We have been able to identify some of the previous shortfalls through these and solutions as well to ensure that we get back on track and improve our process to provide effective service throughout our administration. So with that, I will give it over to Chief Lester Anaquat to provide the details of the loan.
Just like to thank Melissa and the Finance and Audit Committee and members of the finance team that are here to answer any questions that you may have. Just some of the financial background is, first of all, I want to stress that the Chippewas of Saugeen are in a good credit position with cash flow issues. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Our trust money in Ottawa still sits at 9 million. GICs and Hydro One revenues are at 7 million, and CIBC. We have committed 6.3 million for the new governance building, the new band office, and 1.9 million has been committed to construct 2 new state-of-the-art ball diamonds, which are now complete. Our previous senior finance officer, Bill Butt, had cautioned council on using our own source revenue back in 2017 and 2018 during the construction of the new build. So now we are, since we didn't take out a loan or take out a mortgage, so now we are in a position where we have to. We need to take out a mortgage or loan on the new build and make small monthly payments over a longer period of time. This will free up our working capital and not disrupt our finances. We have developed our own finance law. We are members of the First Nations Finance Authority, which means we are eligible to borrow up to $9 million for every million of revenue. So we have, again, good credit and have a long-term mortgage or loan will free up our working capital. So some of the considerations that we have taken in is the fact that a short-term loan for 1 year at a fixed rate of 1.357% for the 1 year, and at the end of 1 year we have an option of paying out the balance in full, or a longer term solution would be to to renew for a longer term. Committing 1 million in revenue will provide the money that we need to borrow. So it won't be a huge drain on our own source revenue. So then, just to reiterate the fact that borrowing is not a sign of failure. Having sound books and good credit is a sign of success. And all debt is manageable. This is basically debt management. And just like to recap that Saugeen First Nations ultimately going to have to look at a long-term borrowing solution, such as the First Nations Finance Authority, that allows for adequate cash flow for day-to-day operations and the development of reserve funds for replacement capital items. It will also give us the ability to address unanticipated expenses. In the meantime, securing financing with CIBC in the amount of 7 million for 1-year term would provide Saugeen First Nation with time to explore these options. And again, the loan would be amortized over a longer period of time to reduce the monthly payments, so they'd be more manageable. The Finance and Audit Committee will be consulted before decisions are being made regarding unbudgeted expenses, which is the reason why we're partly in this situation, and so that we can properly plan and develop funds to be earmarked. The information about the loan will be made available to members by way of multi-year financial plan and audited financial statements. So, however, providing information about borrowing arrangements now via normal communication practices will demonstrate our transparency and accountability back to you, community members. With that, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that we are in a strong borrowing position. Being members of the First Nations Finance Authority indicates that we have sound financial practices, we have sound financial goals and aspirations within the department, and we have highly qualified staff members working in finance. So with that, I believe that's our current situation. But again, it is debt management. And I think the responsible thing here is that the new council going forward is taking on that responsibility to address our debt and to come up with a long-term solution so that going forward into the future, it's not a burden to our members. With that, miigwech. Pause. Okay. Okay, welcome back, membership. We we have your questions on the chat. Some of them were around administration. There was some technical difficulties that we were experiencing with our technology here. However, we do have the questions. Melissa as chair and Sheena as co-chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. No? Strategic plan. So the strategic plan, if you need any more information regarding that, Sheena is prepared to take the lead on that. So that sheena.kugijic@saugeen.org. Okay, and then Melissa will be handling the issues around the loan. Any questions you may have about that as chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. We also have 2 members of our finance staff here, our senior finance officer and senior finance officer, excuse me. We have the top brass here from finance. I mean, they have all the answers to all the questions that you may have. I mean, you can direct them to me as well at lester.onaquit@saugeen.org. If you have no other person to get in contact me and I will direct the questions. If I can't answer them myself, I will direct them to the experts that can. But I'd just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Council will be having our final meeting tomorrow at 1. We have some housing issues to wrap up. With that, I would like to say Chimagwech. I think Conrad wants to come in and wish everyone a happy Merry Christmas as well. So with that, Miigwech, community.
Hi, Jisayani, Bojo, Chinimki, Ndishnakas, Mampi, and Donjaba. I just want to send a Merry Christmas to everyone in the community on behalf of my family and hope everyone keeps safe through the holidays. I just want to remind everybody that to be kind to each other, to be kind and to keep the leaders and the families in your thoughts and your prayers, because the leaders, they usually take the brunt of everything, and they need a lot of help and support as well, because they can't do it alone without the people. So I wanted to put that out there and to remind the people that the enemy isn't inside, it's in the outside. That's where we have to keep our focus on and our energy, and to work together to keep that in mind, because our kids and our children are watching, and we have to be able to be adults and to be leaders and to move through these challenging times that our community is facing. So with that, I say Miigwech, Giken Bezindawig.
Okay, we're back. So I just, again, I'd like to thank everyone for their time and effort, putting in some extra time this evening. Again, I'd like to say on a positive note that you have some fresh faces working on this problem. You have some talented experts in our finance department that knows how to cross the T's and dot the I's. I believe going forward into the future, the current council is being responsible and transparent, and will deal with this cash crunch issue so that we don't have these issues going forward into the future. And with that, I say Merry Christmas and look forward to a Happy New Year.